A lot of people don't realize when they have kids that are in a domestic situation, just because they don't see it doesn't mean they're not enduring it. I got so used to listening for sounds, like I could tell by how things are moving, who's in the next room, because I got so used to listening for trigger sounds like glass breaking, somebody getting thrown into something flying across the room, because it was constant arguments, constant people getting slammed into walls, things breaking, like listening to see if somebody's like breathing or if they're getting choked, or like just listening for alarm sounds. Do I have to call the police? Like, this is what's at stake. It's not just you, it's your children. Because he didn't give a crap about my sister, and she was a baby. She was 15. You don't know what these people are capable of. Survivor's guilt is a real thing. You found 2 people murdered. You go looking for somebody, you found 2 more people murdered. For the past 21 years, our case has been cold. What happened was my sister was 15 years old, and she had a million friends. Like, she had so many friends. Like, she was just a bright, bubbly, young chocolate skin girl out here in the world, you know? And her friends knew that things were getting really bad at home. So they knew something was wrong. My sister didn't go to school on Monday. And so her 4 best friends went to my mom's house. They kept knocking on the door. Nobody would answer the door. And they ended up going in through the side door, and they found my mom and my sister together, deceased. And they were only 14 and 15-year-old kids. And to see their best friend like that just devastated them.
What's up, beautiful people? It's your favorite light, MB. Welcome to another episode of the Confidence Way podcast, where we are shining light on the darkness that is domestic violence and abuse. We got 3 goals. We're going to educate, empower, and encourage. We're going to educate anyone who has never experienced abuse, or who possibly has and may not even know it, because we don't know the signs and we don't know what it looks like in different settings. We're going to empower all of our survivors to share your story without shame, fear, guilt, or judgment. And we're going to encourage anyone who is currently suffering in silence. You are not alone. You are not crazy. Abuse is not normal. Your feelings are valid. And even if it doesn't look or feel like it in this present moment, there's always a way out, and there is support available. But let's go ahead and rise above these insecurities, release these burdens of shame and guilt, and revive the God-given power, purpose, and passion the confidence way, because we about to light it up. Welcome to the show. Y'all, listen, I can't say her name without saying her name like this. Monet, 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 Monet. What's up, sis? My beautiful, amazing, strong, courageous, enduring, just the light, the love, all things that created you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
You know, it's like, my folks know this, and you gonna know this too. It's absolutely a great day to be alive.
It is. It's a wonderful day to be alive. The Lord woke us up today.
Talk that talk. Talk that talk. And I had to hold on to that. I came up with that phrase because in 2023, when I had just left and I was trying to figure things out, I realized that so many times we try to be overly positive that we're lying to ourselves and we're lying to other people. How you doing? I'm good. You're not good. How you doing? I'm fine. You're not fine. I'm okay. You're not okay. And I was like, what is it that's always going to be truthful? So that no matter if I'm feeling exhausted, angry, upset, just I ain't having a good moment in the day, the truth is always going to be, it's a great day to be alive. And when I say that to people, like, so many times it changes their spirit and their energy, because they, you know, we go through life, how you doing? And we give the same, I'm doing good, how you doing? And
Make it till you make it.
That's it. So it has been changing for me and changing for other people. So I just want to put that out there for anybody who's listening, regardless of what you're going through. It's only a season. We don't know how long the season's going to be. It's only a season, but always hold on to the truth that it is a great day to be alive. Y'all, we got another good one. Hold on to your seats. We got another good one coming up. So we're gonna dive right in this thing. Monet.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to start off by asking you, how many abusive situations have you been in?
Personally, I've been in several. Um, I have endured several different types of abuse. Um, I am the survivor of murder. My mother and sister were murdered due to domestic violence. My mother's abuser killed them. I personally have been through emotional abuse from my former spouse, but also familial abuse. So there's multiple layers. But the good thing is you can make it out of it. Everybody has a different journey. Unfortunately, I had to break some generational curses and, learn the hard way.
The unfortunate part is having to learn the hard way, but the fortunate part is that you acknowledge and you are breaking those generational curses. And I've said this in a previous episode that I believe that our generation is the generation to do it, because I believe, and it doesn't have to be everybody else's belief, is that the lack of communication that passes down from generation to generation is why every generation keeps repeating the things that we could have avoided or not even experienced. And it doesn't have to be an abuse type thing. It could be health issues. It could be all sorts of things. Having kids outside of wet, like everything, we're not having open conversations. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this, why I did start this podcast, is because I believe that open conversations is not only going to help heal us, the storytellers, it's going to help inspire the people who may have experienced it and they just, or are currently experiencing it, and they don't know that there's another side to this. They don't know that there's a better life waiting for them. But it's also going to open up conversation, and it's also going to open up moments of just sitting and thinking with topics like domestic violence and abuse for people who've never experienced it or didn't know that they've been in it or didn't know that they have family member who's going through it. And it's like, okay, yo, we need to be talking about this. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about it. Everybody has a different story, but what I'm learning is a lot of the core information is real similar. And so if we can prepare other people who are either in there or haven't been in there but might be on their way, if we can, hey, this is what you need to look out for, I think that collectively we're going to help change the world.
Absolutely. And you're so right when it comes to that, because especially in a lot of older communities, it's always seen as shameful to share what's going on, or you have to keep up appearances for the family, or you're not doing your job by taking care of the problem. If you say anything, then it's on you. It's not necessarily on the actual abuser. It's your fault that you didn't take care of the situation. So there's a lot of layers there.
I agree. I agree. So before we go into what you experienced in your own relationships, I want to touch on your mom and your sister and what happened there. How long was your mom in that relationship? Were you there when everything transpired? And how that affected you?
Well, I was 13 when she started dating him. Um, I'll never forget the day I met him. She came to pick me up with him from a friend's house, and I was fine. And then whenever she introduced me to him, I got like nauseous, like physically nauseous. And I didn't realize till later. I don't know if anybody believes in this. I believe in intuition. There were several times where my body was like something is wrong, like alarm bells. But yeah, she was with him from the time I was 13 till they passed away when I was 19. And I don't ever remember any good times in that household. It was just constant chaos. That's the only way I can put it, is constant chaos.
And so that's 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 years that you're experiencing the energy, the atmosphere, and all of this. Was
Mm-hmm.
he abusive in front of you and your sisters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was just me and my younger sister, Kanisha, who passed away along with my mother. But yeah, it was always like chaotic arguments. Like if we were in our room, like it got to a point where it was normal to listen for certain sounds. And it's so funny because my brother from another mother, he's always like, "You have ninja feet. Why?" He was like, "You just sneak up on people. Why are you always so quiet?" And I didn't realize that I did that, but it's because I got so used to listening for sounds. Like I could tell by how things are moving, who's in the next room, because I got so used to listening for trigger sounds like glass breaking, somebody getting thrown into something, something flying across the room, because it was constant arguments, constant people getting slammed into walls, things breaking, like listening to see if somebody's like breathing or if they're getting choked or like just listening for alarm sounds. Do I have to call the police? Which is something a lot of people don't realize when they have kids that are in a domestic situation. Just because they don't see it doesn't mean they're not enduring it. Because I still to this day will like have like hyper hearing of what's going on in the next room to me. And like it's very strange.
Did you ever find yourself in a moment where your mom was going through what she was going through that you did call the police? Because I mean,
Mhm.
13 is really young.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for that to not be your father, it's almost like, do I have permission to say anything about this?
Yeah. It definitely was like I don't know how else to explain it, but we like knew if it sounded bad, like just call the police. If it was just like yelling, okay, don't do anything. But if it sounded like really like she was getting shoved into things or you could hear glass breaking, call 911. She had 3 protection from abuse orders against this man at the time that she died. And she called the police over a dozen times the week before her and my sister passed. Over half a dozen times, excuse me.
And how did that go? Okay, so hold on. Before I ask that question, let me make sure I'm painting the scene and I understand what you're saying.
Hmm.
So for 6 years,
Hmm.
was she in the relationship with him and she had just broken up with him, or had they been broken up and he moved out? How did that happen?
Well, over that last year or so, it was my senior year, and she had kicked him out. And we were still, originally, it was his apartment when we moved to that place. But at the end, my mom was paying the rent. So she ended up kicking him out. Um, and over that last course of a year and a half, it was back and forth stalking, and everything. And then that summer that I graduated, summer of 2003, we ended up moving a few blocks away into a house instead of the duplex that we were living in. And my mom was super excited about it because like we all had our own rooms. Because before me and my sister were sharing a room, so we were super excited. And it was a nice place. So she was excited to have that finally after being cooped up in our little 2-bedroom apartment for so long. But it was still stalking. He found where we lived there. And turns out he only lived like a couple blocks over. So anytime anybody was at our house, like it was like he was watching all of the time. In September of 2003, I had moved down here. I'd come down here, excuse me, because my ex had just come home from being deployed. He was in the military, and we got engaged. So when we got engaged, we came back up to Pittsburgh to McKeesport, and within 10 minutes, of us being at my mom's house. Here he shows up. Whose car is that outside? Like constantly watching her.
So they're broken up. He's now in the stalking phase because he's not living there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And your mom has called the police. Okay, I got that. We got the 3 protective orders. And guys, okay, let's be real, because I really want to address this, especially in this moment. So many times people are questioning, who've never been in the situation, who have not necessarily known anyone, like what they're actually dealing with, because a lot of times when you're being abused, you're lying all the time. Most of it, like, it's hard for you to tell the truth about a lot of things because you're just either shameful and you just like, this can't be real. But you tell them, well, why don't y'all just call the police? Because the police a lot of times show up and say, okay, well, here's a piece of paper that says this person is not supposed to come within whatever feet of you, and they don't care. The person who is abusive to this point don't care about the police or a piece of paper, because what they're seeing is the police are going to maybe arrest me, put me in jail for overnight, maybe separate me from the home overnight and say, let's just let things settle down, or just say, you're not allowed to be within so many feet. Well, you ain't here. That's not going to stop me from showing up. So your mom had 3 protective orders at
Mm-hmm.
that time.
Mm-hmm.
She called the police a half a dozen times the week up until that moment. What,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did they show up? Did they, what was happening?
Yeah, they showed up, and I guess he would leave right before they showed up because he would see her on the phone calling and leave, and then show back up later on in the night. Like, even whenever, right before I moved and came down here to where I currently am, like that whole summer before I left, it was like constant, like all times of the day and night. If she didn't answer the door, he would just he would bang on the door until she did answer the door and make up excuses of why he needed to come in. Oh, I need to use your bathroom. I need to do this. Can you let me do this? Can I just sleep here? Can, like, any excuse under the sun, all the manipulative things. Because if you ever cared about me, you would X, Y, and Z. The mental manipulation, gymnastics. So it was constant 24/7 nonstop. And I know personally from my own experience, sleep deprivation and emotional manipulation are a huge part of how they wear you down. And to go through years of it constantly will exhaust you. So I think at certain points, my mom was just exhausted and she would just be like, all right, fine. Like, if I can get some peace today, like, just fine.
What I'm hearing is, if someone is stalking or harassing me, I call the police, but they're not there in the moment. There's absolutely nothing that the police can do according to the law, even if I know their known address and location.
Mhm. I think the force might be different depending on where you are, but a lot of the time it's like they're the cleanup crew. They're not there to enforce the law until it's too late.
So did they ever catch him?
He isn't currently in jail for 2 other murders. So what happened was my sister was 15 years old. She went to a vocational technical high school, and she had a million friends. Like, she had so many friends. Like, she was just a bright, bubbly, young chocolate skin girl out here in the world, you know. And her friends knew that things were getting really bad at home. Like, they'd stayed and been at the house over the weekend, and she didn't skip school really. So they knew something was wrong. My sister didn't go to school on Monday. And so her 4 best friends went to my mom's house. They kept knocking on the door. Nobody would answer the door. and they ended up going in through the side door, and they found my mom and my sister together, deceased. And they were only 14 and 15-year-old kids. And to see their best friend like that just devastated them. But they were like, listen, like, this was going on. They called the police. They were like, this was going on. This is the person. Like, we think that it was him. Like, go find him. But also, since they had all of the information from my mom calling the police several times, they went in search of him, and they found Jamar and Andre Hooper, who were cousins, deceased in their house. He was their roommate. From what I read, because I did not go to court, they tried calling, and this is documented. They tried calling one of the tenants, and they could hear his phone ringing in the house. So they kicked down the door, and they found those two, who were cousins, dead in the house. So you found two people murdered. You go looking for somebody, you found two more people murdered. When they finally found him, he had the murder weapon for the cousins, but he did not have the weapon for my mom and my sister. So for the past 21 years, our case has been cold, because when it comes to DNA and domestic abuse and fingerprints, if someone's been in your house before and their fingerprints are in your house, that could have been from any time. And if nobody saw you coming in and nobody saw you leaving, it's not necessarily you, is it? So it's just been cold. And I've tried so many times over the years to get them to reopen it. And I think I finally had a breakthrough. So, yeah.
There are no words. There are no words for this right now to express how much I hate that you have had to endure that.
I hate it too. Especially, I don't know if you have siblings, but being the oldest sibling, I have other siblings from my dad, but that's my sister. I grew up in the same house as her. We came out of the same womb. That is my sister. And survivor's guilt is a real thing, because every day that I go through my life, I get to do something new. I get to travel, I get to go places, I get to experience things, good and bad. And her life stopped at 15. And there's so many things she didn't get to do. And so even my mom, like, there's so many things that she didn't get to do. Like, my mom never bought her own car. I'm on my second that I bought myself, and I am stupid proud about it when I say it.
As
but
you should be.
but like little things like that a lot of people don't think about, I make a point to say something to her when I get to do those things, and say something to my sister. Even though they're not here, I'll say a little prayer and I'll speak to them, because I know what a blessing it is to still be able to do these things, because their lives got cut short. My mom was only 42. She was 2 years older than I am now. And
That's
to think about how much life I haven't lived, and to think about how essentially how young she was, and to have like teenagers, and just how terrified she must have been to be a mom, and not think about, how did I get here, you know? And I think a lot of us don't realize just how important it is, not only for us, like those people, especially it could happen to those who you have children with, but also people that you don't have children with. If you have children, I feel like those situations, especially if it's people that are not the father of your children, you especially have to look out for because they barely care about you. They're not going to care about those other people. Those aren't their kids. But then if it is their kids, well, I don't want anybody else around them, so I'm gonna kill everybody. Just insanity. Because I feel like if my mom ever thought that me and my sister would be harmed, she would have left way earlier than she did. But hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's segue
Hmm.
from that. And you said your ex, you were engaged. Is this the guy that you got married to?
Hmm.
Okay. And how long were y'all dating before y'all got engaged and married?
We started dating when I was 16. We got engaged when I was 19, and we got married when I was 23, 24. And we got divorced in 21. So I was 37 when I got divorced.
Now, this guy, your ex,
Hmm.
he was abusive,
Hmm.
but you said he was more emotionally.
Emotionally, mentally, financially.
So describe that to people, because if you haven't actually experienced emotional abuse or financial abuse or mental abuse, you don't really understand what that looks like or how it feels.
It's different for everyone, I feel, just because everyone has their triggers and things that make them feel uncomfortable, things that make them feel sad. Um, for me, the emotional abuse was knowing that I have survivor's guilt and knowing that I deeply care for other people. On the several occasions that I tried to leave or suggested that we get separated or different things like that, um, threatening to kill himself, literally taking a knife out of the block in the kitchen and holding it to his arm and watching me have a panic attack and begging him to not hurt himself. And then seconds later, set down the knife and say, "This is just how much I love you." That's not manipulation. Because I was told I was crazy and everything under the sun that I said that that was manipulation. Or arguing with you to put all of your money in the joint bank account and you don't need a personal bank account. What do you need that for? We're married. Why do you need a personal bank account? What are you doing that you need a personal bank account? But then every time you need money for something, there's no money. The money is gone, it's evaporated. You don't know. Or anytime you do get like a larger sum of money, something of theirs is broken. Oh, my car needs fixed. I need this. Like, or credit cards going missing. When you do start to have your own financial independence, you get your credit card bill. What is all this stuff on my credit card bill? Or just not. I remember I went to. It was it was like some long weekend. It was a holiday, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get like a little bottle of wine, and I'm gonna watch my favorite show because I was really big into Game of Thrones. I was like, my show, I have 2 episodes of my show. I'm gonna get me a bottle of wine and some popcorn. I go to the liquor store, and I'm pulling my stuff out of my bag. My credit cards are gone. I'm freaking out thinking that I left my credit card at the gas station. Something in me told me to call him. Do you have my cards? Oh, yeah. I went to go, get some beer. I was like, oh, okay. You couldn't tell me that you were doing that. And then you just kept it. So, what if I needed that for gas or anything else? Like, I was always taught to never go in my man's wallet, just like you never go in your mama's purse. He was never taught that. Just take, constantly just taking.
I have to pause you
Mhm.
because it's important. It might not be important to other people, but I feel like it is important. Did he have his own credit cards?
He did.
Were they maxed out?
Mhm.
And so then he knew that you had however much, enough that he didn't have. And so
Mhm.
swipe or no swiping and just come snag that thing right on up.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he took your cards. He had his own cards. He maxed those out. Did you know that he wasn't financially, he didn't have good budgeting and he wasn't financially stable while y'all were dating, engaged? Like,
No, not really. Like, when we were dating, he was a different person. Coming back from Iraq changed him a lot. Um, but I learned, hindsight's 2020. I learned throughout that relationship he had a very narcissistic parent, and I believe personally that was part of his issues that he had with me. Um, because she too was very manipulative, and that's how he saw women. So, because she has some skeletons in her closet, and how she treated his father a certain way, he saw women as manipulative and hateful and deceitful. So he would project that onto me, even though when we were dating before the abuse started, like, I had always been a beacon of hope for him, and not only me, like my mom, because again, when I was in my senior year, um, he was in Iraq. So whenever he got a hold of a satellite phone, he would call my home because his mom stopped answering the phone because the husband that she had at the time wasn't his father. He didn't like him. So she would send him care packages and stuff. But whenever he would call home, she would never answer, to the point where if he got the satellite phone and could call home, he would call me because he knew at my house, either me, my mom, or my sister would answer the phone.
so much happens when we don't communicate and we don't address our own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that his mother's decision with her relationship should be impacting you or should be in any way causing him to do something different. But because whatever she dealt with before marrying that second guy, we're just bringing baggage from relationship to relationship, and we're not talking about it, and we're not opening up about it, and we're not healing from it. And until we can be transparent and honest and get ugly with ourselves about what it is that we need to address, we're not going to be good enough for us. And what we bring to the table is not going to be good enough for whoever we're trying to serve it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just feel like we need to understand this, that he grew up, this is how he saw his mom. And most people think, oh, your mom, you think nurture, caring, loving. But to be sending care packages, knowing that your son is fighting for this country and risking his life, you're not picking up your phone because of who you're dating. And it's not like he's a little elementary school kid. He's a grown man at this point. That impacted how he perceived his own fiance, his own wife. And now there's issues in your marriage. And there's issues that he hasn't dealt with from his past trauma or what he experienced. Now he can't communicate effectively. And effective communication is how we win. And a lot of times the abuser, when they're emotionally and mentally abusive and manipulative, they are saying to the one that they're abusing, you don't know how to communicate. When the truth is, if you step back and look at it, yeah, maybe I need to help work on my communication, but they don't know how to communicate. It's like they expect you to read whatever is going on in their mind and act accordingly without certain words being said. Did you ever experience anything like that with that homeboy?
Oh yeah. It goes so deep. Like it goes so deep. Like there were certain instances when he knew that I was making sense in our argument and he would bring up my dead mother. Like, I wish your mom was here. She would agree with me. She would tell you that you're being irrational. Or when I started to go on my mental health journey and started to go to a therapy and started to deal with my complex PTSD because he refused. I begged him to go to therapy, begged him to go to the VA, begged him, like, please, like, we need to fix this. No, there's nothing wrong with me. It's all you. But then when I did get diagnosed with complex PTSD and anxiety and all of those things, and I got medication, well, at least I don't have to be on medication. But then when I started taking my medication, well, you're only acting like this because you're on medication or hiding my medication. I don't want you to do anything bad to yourself. Yeah, so it's either take your medication because you're crazy, or I'm going to hide your medication because you don't know what you're doing. Which one is it? When I say mental gymnastics, I mean manipulation, mental gymnastics. It was never him. It was never him. It was always me. Because I was trying to figure out for the longest, am I crazy or is this situation crazy? Because this doesn't make any sense. Either it's I'm crazy and I'm upset because I need medication, or I'm crazy because I need medication.
They are masters of this. They are masters of convincing the person that they're manipulating that they're crazy. And it's like their endurance to do it. It's like, okay, I know I got it. It's gonna take a minute, but I'm gonna get her to break, and I'm gonna get her to think that, or I'm gonna get him to think that he don't know what he's talking about. Because this, a lot of times when you're in a relationship, you're with someone that you really thought loved you, and you thought you loved them, you don't really believe that they're manipulating you, and you don't think that once they start manipulating you, they're gonna have capacity to do it over and over and over again until you wear down. Like they're the Energizer Bunny of manipulation.
Oh, baby, when I tell you, like this man would, there's something called in psychology called cycling, where they'll keep arguing the same point over and over and over. And my abuser would follow me from room to room around the house, arguing with himself. Like at certain points, I would just stop talking and just let him talk. And he would literally stand outside the bathroom door, stand outside of the bedroom door, and just talk, like yelling the same point over and over and over again. Like, and it was like I couldn't sleep. Like, it was hard for me to study. Like, it took me so long to finish my degrees because like certain points were worse than others. And I ended up on academic probation because I literally could not focus on anything. I felt like I was trapped in a cell. I felt like I was in prison. I was like, I can't think. Like, I can barely like work. Like, I'm doing everything to distract myself from this psychosis that I'm in at home. Like, I just couldn't take it. And they do that on purpose, again, to wear you down and make you think that you are the crazy one.
Y'all, if you've been through it, you know it is so draining, so exhausting. And then to it's exhausting to try to hold on to who you used to be or who you thought you were or who you want to be while dealing with that you eventually slowly just start loosening that grip, because you get to a point where you're having this own battle in your mind of, do I keep going in my truth, or do I just let it go? Because this is, the longer that I'm trying to stay in me and who I am, the more homeboy or homegirl is going to come up with whatever they can to make me let that go. So it's like, do I just go ahead and let it go and just be here existing numb in this relationship? And that's crazy. Before we go on though, I have to address, you said my abuser. So we ain't doing that. We not claiming no claims on nobody that got issues with their own selves that they need to work on. So we could call the abuser homeboy, homegirl, but I want us to understand, and this is for the audience, our words have power. You can believe it or not, our words have power. And we don't have to accept anything that we don't want to accept. Something that I learned after I separated myself from homeboy was, I can set expectations of who this character of this person is and not have to think anything is going to come better of it. Just expect what it is. But I also don't have to accept the energy that's being brought to the table if we have to have a conversation. I can, like you said, the cycling. You can be in the bathroom doing your own thing and you don't got to accept that energy. It's hard to block it out when you live with it 24/7. But you don't have to accept anyone's energy, whether it's an abusive relationship, whether it's a bully, whether it's someone at the job that you just don't like. You have the power to not accept energy that's not yours. You have the power to reject it, and you have the power to use your own energy to overcome whatever foolishness and negativity that other people try to throw your way. I just want to put that out there. So you got the mental, the financial, the emotional abuse, and you're in it. You said y'all were, okay, first of all, you were dating since you were 16.
Mm-hmm.
So up until you got married when he got back?
A little bit after that. A few years after that, I was 23 when we
Okay.
got married. Yeah. So
So
he got back when I was 19.
so 16 to 19, you feel like the relationship was good, or did you see any
It
signs?
was good. It was good. I didn't see any signs there.
Okay.
But, you know, when you're 16 and when you're 36, that's two different people. That's a world away. That's
A
three worlds
world
away.
away.
Yeah. So like when we were younger, I think a big part of it was we were so young and we both went through so much trauma at the beginning of our lives, because he was only a year and a half older than me. So he was like just turning 21 whenever we got engaged. And he had only been home from Iraq for maybe not even 6 months before my mom and my sister got murdered. So we kind of trauma bonded at that time because he went through it with me. And that's part of what just, it astounds me that he went through that with me and then subjected me to some of the same things. Like in the end of my relationship, the stalking. I was like, you witnessed me go through this already. And you like, I never would have thought.
Okay, so fast forward. The
Mm-hmm.
signs started showing up. Signs didn't show up till he got back, and then y'all
Mm-hmm.
started. Was it a gradual progression of the abuse, the mental control, the manipulation, or was it kind of just like, I'm back and this ain't who left? This a whole.
It was gradual. But also because I was 19, I didn't realize certain things weren't normal and that they were toxic because I had never lived with anybody before, you know. Like we had gotten our first apartment together, everything was fine. Like I had moved a whole 1,000 miles away from anybody that I knew to be with him. And like little things like control of the vehicle, always making an excuse about why we can't afford for me to have my own vehicle. Um, like always trying to nickel and dime things that I did, even down to, oh, don't you already have tampons at the house? Why do you need to buy more tampons? Like nickel diming to that degree. Like ridiculous, ridiculous things. Or not allowing me to have my own personal friendships. He had to be friends with them too to insert himself in the situation, and like would get upset when I had friends that didn't want to be his friend.
Okay, hold on, hold on, hold on. What? Okay, because in the situation I experienced, it was less about that homeboy trying to be friends with my friends and more about cutting me off from my people. But in your experience, it was, oh, if they your friend, they gonna be my friend. What is the dynamic though when, like, how does this conversation even had, or the energy when you have a friend and they like, yo, I love you, sis, but I ain't fooling with that. Like, how did that, what was that like?
It was strange. Like there are several people that I'm still friends with that cut him off like immediately. Were like, I was always your friend. I was never his friend. But made them feel uncomfortable to a degree where they would tell me like, yeah, he hit me on the side. Like this is weird. like like I don't know like why he's contacting me. Like this is strange.
Did he have his own friends?
Very few. Very few.
Was that because, I mean, again, y'all are still young, but even in high school, people have a crew. Did he, when y'all were
Um
younger, did he have his own friends?
he had a few friends, but like I said, very, very few.
Mm-hmm.
Um and over the years, everybody gets their own life
Right.
and children and things. So
Now, the friends that we're talking about, though, are these friends that you had since either before meeting him or meeting him at the beginning of the relationship? Or are these friends that you met later in life?
friends that I met later in life, but also friends that I had beforehand. When we get to closer to leaving, I'll tell you one that'll blow your mind.
Girl, we ain't gotta pump the brakes and slow down at all. I'm just trying to make sure I'm keeping everybody on track, and most importantly, guys, like the isolation that happens. This is a theme amongst people who are trying to manipulate you and control you. It does not have to be physical. They find a way to cut you off from being able to be your own person. It's like, and I know it's because you're the host and
Mm-hmm.
they're the parasite. And if
Mm-hmm.
the host is away from the parasite can't survive. And the parasite feels threatened because the parasite doesn't know what the host is talking about, who the host is talking to, what conversations they're having. Therefore, the parasite can't defend themselves. And in their mind, oh, something got to be going down
Because they're doing it.
because they doing it.
Because they're doing it. There were several times throughout my relationship where I noticed things and things were brought to my attention and I confronted him about it. And I was crazy. I was insecure, this, that, and the third. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh, I was right the whole time.
Y'all, it's as simple as I can remember this, and I learned this when I was in college, undergrad. I learned this and I realized this. But there, when you're with someone and you're faithful to that person and you've acknowledged and said, yo, I'm committed to you. If we in this relationship, I'm in this relationship with you. You don't have to worry about nobody else. And you're true to that. Like, you're the type of person who has that character integrity and that those moral values. When you start being accused of stepping outside of y'all's relationship, even if y'all are just dating, it's a strong possibility that the person is accusing you because they're guilty of the fact that they're doing the thing they're accusing you of doing. Then it causes friction, it causes an argument. You're trying to defend yourself, and they're going to make you think that no, you got to be doing something. Then you start questioning the conversations and the decisions that you made. It's like, well, did I do anything that kind of like gave this person the impression that I was doing that? It's not you, bro. It's not you, sis. We have to really see these signs, and these conversations are being had so that if you're suspicious about something, go with your instinct, follow your gut. Don't let someone convince you with their words when you're suspicious of their actions, or you've seen their actions and then they come back, no, babe, like you said, a form of manipulation and control and mental abuse is when the parasite, the homeboy or the homegirl, says that they're going to commit suicide because they know how much you care about them. You're not going to let that happen. And that's just a way for them to draw you back closer. Like if you're away from the house, this happened to me once. Away from the house, I think I'm going to, like, yo, you've never said anything like this before. Well, two, I think you're too proud to do that, but because I care, I can't call your bluff. I'm not convinced enough in myself to call your bluff. And that's a form, like they do it. They do it.
Several times.
And the best thing you can do, instead of putting yourself back in that situation, instead of you rushing home, just call. You can call the 911 non-emergency and have them go do a well check. Give them the location of whoever that person is and say, hey, okay, you don't have to respond, because responding and entertaining that energy is going to help them draw you back in. But you can easily say, hey, yo, somebody is at this location. This is their name. They're saying that they're going to do something to themselves. I'm concerned. Can y'all go check on them? And you don't gotta be in it, because that is a real thing in abusive relationships. The mental manipulation, the emotional manipulation to pull on the person who has the heart and the compassion and say, I'm not going to be here when you get home if you don't come home now. Okay, so let's scoot on up then. So we done been through all that several times. He's pulled you back in when you're trying to leave. Because are you leaving because you now acknowledge what's happening and you're trying to make sure that your own mental health is better, or have you lost all hope that the relationship can even be salvaged at this point?
I got to a point where I was on my mental health journey and I had done so much work, several years of work dissecting myself. And that's the hardest part about therapy, is you got to be real with the therapist and yourself and unpack a lot of stuff that you might not be so proud of, that you realize that you do to cope, or things that you realize, hey, I let myself be manipulated in this situation or certain situations because of something that happened 10 years ago, 12 years ago with somebody completely different. And you don't realize that they connected. And you're like, oh, that's why I do that. Okay. And, so I did a lot of work on myself, and I grew as a person and started to take accountability for my own life and what I was and was not going to deem acceptable. Because I am my only mother's child, I feel a lot of responsibility on what I do with my life. And I felt disingenuous at a certain point, because I had started my journey helping other women in domestic violence situations back in 2010. Because of what happened to my mom and my sister, I started working with my local domestic violence shelter and speaking to the women there during group counseling. Like, this is what's at stake. It's not just you, it's your children. Because he didn't give a crap about my sister, and she was a baby. She was 15. You don't know what these people are capable of. But I felt disingenuous because I found myself on another side of it. COVID cleared the air for me. COVID cleared the air for me. And he had a drinking problem. And over the years, it had gotten worse. But right before COVID happened, I had just come home from New York. I traveled to New York with my best friend. It was their birthday. And a few weeks after that, Christmas Eve, 2019, I was in my last semester of college of my master's program. I had alerted my professors during that last semester, like, listen, I'm in the fight of my life right now. Like, I am in a domestic abuse relationship. Like, please give me some leeway on some of these assignments, because at the time I was working 2 jobs and I was in my master's program, which is insane. Please don't ever overwork yourself like that, whoever is listening. But I was working a 40-hour-a-week job, a part-time job, and I was in my master's program. And then I had this person in my ear all day.
Okay, hold on. I want to stop you, but I don't want to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working 2 jobs while getting your master's. Is he working?
Yeah. He's working a 40-hour-a-week job.
Why did you feel the need you had to work a full-time and a part-time job while getting your master's?
Well, the access to the money. We had a joint account, but I had a side account. He didn't know how much I was getting paid from that side money. So I would have some of it go to the joint account, but I had a secret account that he knew that I had another account, but the way it was set up, you could have money auto drafted to an account you can only see if you log into the computer. So I had money going into that secret stash account. I was stacking because I knew, part of me knew if I didn't hide it somewhere, he was going to take it. Because there were times when he took that card and would use it for whatever erroneous stuff he wanted to do. So he didn't know exactly how much I was getting paid from that other job. So I would hide money over there.
So you got a household.
Mm-hmm, the household account.
Grown people
Mm-hmm.
working 2 full-time jobs. And he's getting benefits from the military?
No, that's a whole nother thing. Girl, it's layers to this.
I want to scream because people automatically assume that, right?
They do. And, I didn't realize it until I was married to somebody in the military, but then they didn't have anything. And I was like, why? Well, turns out later on, he was in the reserves and he was not properly discharged. He stopped going to his drills, and I found out those weekends when I thought he was at drills, he was at his daddy's house drinking.
Hold up.
Because I never asked about his monthly allowance from the military, because that was his money. I never asked him about it, but it was never in our joint account. And then whenever he really was discharged from the military, he just never got anything. But that was also part of why he would argue with me when I would try and talk to him about using his GI Bill for school, or us using the VA loan to buy a home. I was called a gold digger. I said, I'm a gold digger, but I'm your wife. And I want us to have a house. What do you mean I'm a gold digger? But it was all because he was covering up his lies.
Homeboy, y'all, just in case y'all missed this, I need to. So homeboy stopped showing up for drill, but kept going away for every weekend that he was supposed to be going to drill to go to his dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
So we got two full-time jobs in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And because the financial abuse and control was so strong, you opted to pick up a part-time job while getting your master's degree and living in a constant state of, I don't know what the fiddlesticks is going on here, but this can't be life.
Yeah.
That's a tough decision.
Well, what made it for me was, like I was saying, Christmas Eve of 2019, I got my email from my final professor. And he was like, congratulations, you have your master's of science in communication. And I was like I was sitting on the couch and I had my laptop and I started crying. And I was like, Mom, I did it. Neither one of my parents went to college. So when I finally went back to college, I was like, I'm getting the highest degree I can get because my mama would be so proud of me. I remember when I got my high school diploma and I could hear her, and she was all the way in the back of the auditorium, and I could hear her yelling for me. And then every time one of my friends went up there, I could hear her yelling for them too. And I could feel it. And instead of being happy for me, they started an argument with me. And we argued till like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll never forget it. And I was like, I can't, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. So I got in my car and I didn't know where to go. And I drove to the movie theater parking lot around the corner from my house. And I sat in my car in the dark and I prayed and I cried and I prayed and I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, please let me know if leaving this person is the right thing to do because I cannot do this. I can't, I'm going crazy. I can't do this. Like they're supposed to love me. They're supposed to be happy for my accomplishments. This person like hates me. And I'll never forget it. Me being intuitive. One of the last things I ever smelled was my mom's laundry detergent because she used Gain. I never used Gain. And I was sitting in my car, and this has happened several times over the years. I was sitting in my car and I got a strong whiff of Gain laundry detergent. So I knew she was there with me. And then, unfortunately, a few months later, when tax time came and COVID happened, I had some issues. I won't go into that just because there would be legal ramifications. So I wasn't able to leave then. So I had to regroup and play it quiet and endure for a little while longer. And then in the summer of 2020, something happened. Um, he was drunk. He would start drinking before I got home. I worked in banking. He would start drinking as soon as he got home from work at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He wouldn't eat, but he would drink for days. So he would go to work drunk, come home, still be drunk, drink some more. So by the time I got home, he was already drunk. 5 o'clock, I came in. I was like, I don't have time to listen to you. I'm gonna start dinner, like whatever. So he would, like I said, he would do this thing cycling where he would just continue the same argument that he was mad about. And it was like you could walk in that house and you could feel the anger. It was like fog. And he started going into his whole thing, cycling about the same thing that he was upset about. And it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. And we were sitting he was sitting on the love seat and I was sitting on the couch. And you say things that hurt each other when you've had enough. So I just started like calmly, and I think that was the thing that pissed him off. I started laughing at something that he said. And I was like, I wish I had done all the things that you said that I did. Cause then it might halfway justify the way that you treat me. But I could if I wanted to, but I haven't. You're funny though. I wish I did. And that set him off. And before I knew it, he was on top of me, screaming at me. And I had to restrain him to get him off of me. And it took everything in me to get him off of me. And then 5 minutes later, he accused me of attacking him. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't. I called his father. I had started packing a bag and I called his father. And I was like, you need to come get your son. He's out of hand because his father didn't live too far away. And his father told me, I don't get involved in domestics. I said, this is your son. You raised him. I was like, but you know what? Neither one of you or his mother take any accountability for anything. Like, you don't care about him at all. So I guess I have to leave. And I packed a bag and I left and I went to a friend's house. And thankfully, the place that I worked at the time, they have disaster and domestic violence grants. And I had been doing my homework, and I've been telling my therapist about the abuse that I had going on at home. And when I applied for the grant and I spoke to someone in HR for my job, they were like, if you can get a letter on your therapist's letterhead of her documenting that you were going through an abusive relationship and you need to get out, we can get you first month's in security deposit. So I went through my job. I called my therapist. I was like, please. She was like, no problem. Had everything printed out for me. I went to her office, took it to my HR people, and they got me first month's rent and security deposit. I had to wait about a month or two, but that's how I got out. He went to work at 3 a.m. one day, 3:01, throwing stuff in bags, throwing stuff in my car, anything I could find. And that was one of the hardest parts of leaving. Was I had a girlfriend who said that she was going to help me. Day of, didn't answer her phone. So I didn't have time to process it. I was like, okay, I guess it's just me. I called a moving company since I had some money saved up from my second job. Called a moving company. They were there within like an hour. They started throwing all my big stuff in there. Listen, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like 15 minutes before he was supposed to show up home from work, I was peeling out of the parking lot with my car stacked to the brim and my little tiny chihuahua in my front seat, and we were on our journey. But I couldn't do it anymore. Because I knew once he physically put his hands on me, I was like, if I don't leave here, he's going to kill me. Because all the theatrics that he's already done, if I do not leave here, he is going to kill me. If he doesn't drive me crazy first, he's going to kill me.
Whew.
Sorry. It's
y'all all right over there? Y'all need to breathe. Gosh. Okay. Let me point this out. We don't want to speed past nothing. One thing that I believe is that it may not feel like it in the moment and you may not believe it in the moment, but there's always a way out and there's always some kind of support. The thing is, we don't necessarily know where to look. So if you do have a job and you're experiencing an abusive relationship right now, that's one thing that you need to look into. Is there a domestic violence and abusive grant at this job? Or is there anything that this job offers? Is there any place in my neighborhood or my community that I can seek help? And it's a quick Google search. And I've Google searched a lot of these statewide, citywide, or United States, countrywide websites of domestic violence support and the help. And they often have, like, on their page, hey, click here if you need to escape this page quickly. They have an escape button ready for you so that if somebody's trying to search and they just come home real quick or they around the corner, you can close out that page and then join some groups or something. But there's always some kind of way to get support. It's just that a lot of times people don't know where to look. So that's one place that you can look if you're in a position and you're fortunate enough to be in an abusive relationship and have a job away from the house. If you have that, look into that. So
also, might I add?
Yes.
A lot of places, it won't say it's a domestic violence grant. Because at the workplace that I had, it just said disaster grant. And then when I talked to HR, she was like, oh, you can use this for domestic violence as well. So even if it just says disaster grant, definitely look into that too, because you might be able to use that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. That's so important. That is so important. And I didn't know about it. I wouldn't have thought that workplaces would actually go that detailed or that depth into someone else's domestic situation to offer that kind of relief and that kind of help. And you see disaster, you're thinking natural disasters. But baby, an abusive relationship is a disaster. You hear me? I can only laugh at it because Lord, you know, and it's bananas. It's bananas in pajamas. So you peeling out, you and your chihuahua on the road. You've got a place, right? At this time, or you got a new place. So you're headed to your new place. So take us through that, because you said now that you left, earlier you mentioned the stalking began.
Mm-hmm. So I had left him, and I had gotten I tried to get a protection from abuse order after this, and it took a couple times, but then it finally happened.
Why it took a couple of times? What were they saying?
Couldn't find him to serve him, even though I gave them all of the places. I gave him his workplace, I gave him his mama's house, his daddy's house, but apparently they couldn't find him anywhere to serve him.
Do you think that after you left, he stopped going to work? Is that a possibility?
No, because as far as I knew, he still had his place for a while. He found out where I had lived, and one day, like, he did this thing where at first, he did what they all do and accuse you of leaving for another man. I was like, no, it's just me and my dog vibing. I just don't have to deal with you no more.
Y'all don't understand the air changes.
It really does. Like, you feel like you have like 30 pounds lifted off your chest. And I was just so happy to just walk around in my little Carrie Bradshaw apartment with me and my dog and listen to my music and just not have to feel trapped. But after a while, he tried to show up to my job a few times. So I had to tell my bosses, like, listen, this is what's going on. So, and they were very helpful. I will be forever grateful to that establishment. And not only that, having amazing female coworkers. I had some amazing female coworkers, and I live in the Deep South, and we live in an open carry state. I told my coworkers what was going on, and almost every single one of them open carry. And they told me, when I told them that he was showing up at my house, they said, if he comes in here with a rah-rah, we will light him up like the 4th of July. And we're taking you to go get a gun today. Because for years, I never allowed him to have guns in our house. And I realized it was because subconsciously I knew that he could possibly be unsafe. Because of what happened to my mom, I just didn't want it to even possibly ever be a factor. And now I know why. But at a certain point, he found out where I was living, and we were arguing on the phone. And I was still kind of stuck in that thought process that I have to keep enduring this. And I was like, no, I'm going to finish watching my show. I'm going to turn my phone on mute. And 30 minutes later, I have somebody banging on my door. You're going to answer me. Why did you stop answering your phone? And I said, why are you here? I didn't tell you where I live. Like, you need to leave. So then little things started appearing on my doorstep. Pictures that he had drawn of me. Yeah. Food. Like, stuff that I wasn't able to pack because I just was like, okay, like, charge it to the game. It's gone. I'll buy a new one. Stuff that I forgot that I even had would just show up on my porch. Little reminders that I know you're here. I still see you. I'm still around. And even when I had a Ring doorbell, I couldn't catch him on camera because there was one like single blind spot, but the way my stairs were, you would have to be super close to the wall and like legit like crawl up the stairs for you not to be seen in this blind spot. And I had gotten a roommate, and they're a longtime friend of mine, and they didn't even see them. But when the Ring camera popped up that there was something on the porch, he had went outside. He was like, "Hey, I'm out here. You want to talk to me? I'm a man." And that person never came out. But they left something on my porch. And ever since then, he hasn't physically tried to see me, but he, for a long time, like even up until 23, he had sent me things, because I have since moved from that original spot, but he still somehow had found my address and sent me things.
But were y'all still married?
No, we got divorced at the end of 21.
I'm trying to figure out who he would contact, like what agency he would contact, because he could easily say, if you still had his last name, they might not ask for divorce paperwork. Hey, my wife, I don't, how in the heck? They're very resourceful.
Mm-hmm. And I live in a big, small town. I live about an hour outside of New Orleans. And there's 2 military bases here. So sometimes people can be a bit friendly. I'll say that. A lot more less cautious than they would be with regular civilians.
That's bananas. All right, because it's 2025 now. So you left in 2019?
I left in 2020.
2020?
Yeah, and we got finally, our divorce was finalized in 2021.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And since 2021, was 2021 the last that you heard of him from him?
No.
Or is he still?
No. In 2022, or was it 2030? I believe it was 2022. His father had a stroke, and he called me from his father's phone trying to manipulate me. Like, his daddy was still on the ground. I could hear the sirens from I could hear the sirens from the fire truck. And he called me and he's like, "My dad just had a stroke, like da 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 da." And I was like, "Did you call your brother?" Because he has a sibling. I was like, "Did you call your brother?" And he was like, "No, you need to unblock me. Like, this is serious." I was like, "I'm not your wife anymore. I hope that your father is okay, but I'm not your wife anymore. Call your brother." So I called my ex-sister-in-law and I'm like, "Listen, like, your husband's dad just had a stroke. I don't know what's going on. This man just called me. I hear fire trucks and fire engines. Like, I don't know what's going on. Call him and see what's going on." And even in that situation, he tried to use it to manipulate what information he was going to give them if they didn't give him information about me. It was the wildest, strangest, crazy, or like, listen to him.
Y'all.
Like, it goes even deeper. Like, the entire time we were married, he was an atheist. And I respected that, because individually, we are allowed to believe in what we believe in. I'm a Christian. Our entire marriage, he was an atheist. When I left him, he decided to start going to virtual Bible study with my grandfather, who is a strict Jehovah's Witness. Anything to manipulate the situation. And I was like, for somebody that used to laugh at me and call me naive for believing in Jesus, and now you go to Bible study with my grandfather just to spite me. Like, there's something seriously wrong with you.
So he stopped in 2023 after his dad had a stroke, and he was like, "Okay, she ain't biting." Because
he sent me, like I said, he found out the current address I'm at. He sent he sent something for our anniversary, a DVD from our first date. And that was like the last straw for me. And like I said, we live in open carry state, and I'm versed now. I go to the range, I'm versed now. So I called his mother. I said, listen, I know you love your son. Get him together. Because I'm not accepting any threats. Please leave me alone. Like, I beg you, please get him to leave me alone. That's your child. Because from what I knew, he lived close to her. So like, go take a walk. Tell your son to calm down and get some therapy. Because I'm several years removed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's something wrong with him, and I'm not about to disrupt my life to continue letting you affect me. I'm not. So somebody get him, because I don't have nothing to do with this no more. But yeah, it was rough.
Them jokers be pulling out all the stops. Like, anything where they think that they can play on that compassion and that affection that you once showed them. And if, like you said, you had started your healing journey and you were in that thing for several years, and therapy is a part of healing journey. A lot of people think you can do it on your own, but I don't know what you're doing, but a lot of times, most of the times, many of the time, you need to get professional therapy so that you can not only unpack what you're dealing with, but get guidance on how to navigate through it and how to grow beyond that point, because they come back with all kinds of crazy.
And you know what I feel like helped me is, I didn't realize it when I was younger, but now being older, now that we have like more studies in technology, I'm on the spectrum to a degree. I have a lot of pattern recognition. And now that I've gone through that and I look back at certain situations, I'm like, there were patterns that I didn't see were happening. And now that I'm more focused on pattern recognition, I can see things before, like, I'm like, I need to stay away from this person. They're the way they moved, it ain't right. And a lot of times we, again, don't listen to our intuition about certain things. And it's funny because I make this joke all the time, especially when I'm talking to the ladies at the local women's shelter. I'm like, Jesus was trying to tell me, and I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening. Like, there's so many things before I got married that was trying to tell me. And I was just in the clouds, like, I love him. Like, girl, no, run. He was saying, you in danger, leave. Like, I left my veil and we had to go back to the house and get it. And this part right here will come full circle. At the time, my best friend, who had a cosmetology degree, did my hair the night before my wedding and messed it up. She had given me a sew-in, but she didn't have enough leave out. So you know about hair, you could see every track in my head. And
Was
she was
she
my
new
maid.
in the game? Hold on, we can't. Was she new?
She was new, but she
Okay.
went to a very expensive school. She had already been working. She went to a very expensive school. But my matron of honor, who had gotten married earlier in that year, she and her husband like went round and round the night before my wedding because they saw it, but I didn't see it.
They always do.
Whenever she messed up my hair, she went out on the porch where the boys were all drinking and went out there and was drinking with them and was, oh, I'm so sad. Da, 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 da. Like, I messed up her hair. She's going to kill me. So my ex-husband comes in the house and gets upset with me, like, you're being a bridezilla and da 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 da, and this, that, and the third. And drove her back to her hotel. I didn't think anything about it because I'm worried about my hair. Hindsight's 2020. When I left him, we had still, me and her had still been like on again, off again friends, but we had a falling out at a certain point, and it never really was what it was back then. But she was back in my life and we would talk. But she was also friends with him. And when he realized I wasn't coming back, he said, "Oh, well, someone else wants me." And I said, "Oh, I bet I know who." And he told me it was her. I said, "Both of y'all could have left me alone 20 years ago." I had a sneaking suspicion, but I could never put my finger on it. I could never prove it, but I knew it. And both of y'all, I was like, she wants to be me, she'll never be me, and you can't have me, so you'll have the next best thing. Have fun. But I'm still not coming back. I'm not jealous. I don't want nothing. Like, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
That's the only thing I want, for you to leave me alone.
Exactly. But I was like, both of y'all so tired and through. Like, she wants, and she admitted at a certain point, because we had fallen out, she admitted that she was always jealous of me. And I was like, you know what? They'll show you who you are. You got to believe it. Because I still try to be a good person. And this is what you do? You stood up in front of God and my entire family, and her family was there too in my wedding, when you were like, I don't even want him anymore, but it's the principle. Like, you knew from the beginning that you always coveted what I had. And what a horrible friend to be. And then pretended like she cared about me whenever I was going through the abuse. And tried to tell me, "Oh, well, I can say that he tried his best to be a good husband." You can. You can. That is some astronomically pick me behavior. You can attest to him trying to be his best as a husband. You can attest to that.
Some of them are real good at having a whole different presentation when they out there in them streets.
Yeah.
They're real good at that.
Till you get trapped.
Good at it.
You're like, she was right.
Right. Like, you can go in that back door if you want to. I tried to told you.
Right.
What you think it is.
Because that's something a lot of people don't understand either. When you get out of it, sometimes you got to be the villain. And that's the best thing my therapist ever told me. The other person is going to try and paint you as a villain. The people that know you and love you know who you are. So let those other people believe whatever. They can say whatever about me. I do not care. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm this, I'm that. I was sleeping with this person, that person, the third. Sure. If that's what you believe, sure. Whatever.
Because it ain't got nothing to do with me. Y'all, for real.
Because I feel like that's the shame that, like, a lot of us carry is, I believe this crazy person for this long. Other people are going to believe him over me or her over me. Like, they're going to believe them over me.
Yeah, and then if you actually care about your character and your integrity and your name, you don't want people out there talking about you, but that ain't none of our business anymore.
Yeah.
You done endure whatever you endured. You're on the other side. And one thing that I do want to point out, if at all possible, if you can, when you get out, you don't have to have communication with that person. The best way for you to start your healing journey is to cut off all communication with that person.
Yeah, no contact.
Because
no
you have those emotional ties, and people don't understand, and it's crazy. But if you've devoted so much of your time, energy, and attention to someone, and you've hoped that it would work, if you just stuck in there long enough and you've endured the pressure of, if you believe in God and marriage is sacred and you believe that you're not supposed to get, like, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with why people stay in situations longer than they ever should have. You have to cut that off so that you can start doing what you've always wanted to do, which is focus on you, focus on your mental health, focus on your healing, so that you can actually see who you were meant to be the whole time.
Yes. And that was part of how I realized I was in the wrong spot, like losing my mom and my sister at such a young age and having to carry that really derailed me for a long time. Like I was accepted to business school before I got engaged. Like I was going to be in law enforcement. My track was, I had gotten into a paralegal program. I wanted to be a lawyer. Funnily enough, I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer. And then when I realized what that entailed, I was like, I could never compromise my soul in that way. I know that people do for good reasons because the reason why I wanted to do it was a good reason, but I could never see myself representing somebody because it's my duty to represent people and know that they were guilty and still have to represent them. I couldn't do it. I'm not soul ain't built for that. But it took a long time for me to get back on the road to college and who I actually am. And when I finally started on that road is when I realized like this isn't the situation for me. The more I learned and the more I tried to grow as a person and grow as an adult, I realized that he and I were not on the same page. We were not in the same galaxy. We wanted different things out of life. And that's okay. Growing is okay. But trying to keep people in spite of yourself trapped in the same cyclical depression is not okay. But it takes so much courage to actually focus on you and focus on yourself. Like, since I left that situation, like I said, it took everything for me to finish my degree in that situation. But I still did it. I ended up becoming a manager at a bank. Like, I have traveled the world. Like, I've been out of the country, places my mother never even got on a plane besides when she was in the military with my dad. She never owned her own car. I paid off my second one. She never went out of the country, didn't have a passport. I've visited several countries. Like so many different things and so many lives I've lived. Like I used to work in fashion journalism. I went to the big show in New York City. I never thought I would get there, but when I was 13 and 12 and I used to watch Fashion File on TV, I always said I was going to get there. And one of the best conversations I ever had was with one of my oldest friends, and she's a clinical psychologist. And when I told her that I was thinking about leaving, and I had told her everything that I was going through, she said, "You have always done every single thing that you said you were going to do. This person that I'm talking to who feels broken, this is not my friend." She said, think about it. Everything that you've ever said that you wanted to go after, you've gone after it and done it. Don't let this break you. And she held me to it because I was going to hurt myself. She said, whatever you have, I need you to take it to the dumpster, throw it in the dumpster, throw other stuff on top of it. And she said, Monday morning, I'm calling you at 11 o'clock. By 11 o'clock, you will have made a psychology appointment. And I'm calling you 11 o'clock on the dot. And she called me 11 o'clock on the dot, and I had made my first psychology appointment. And it's friends like that that are insurmountable, because I'm still friends with her to this day. But you just have to remember who you are and all the gifts that you've been given. And so many men and women, they get blinded by that other person just suffocating their light out.
You said it.
Yeah.
They suffocate the light out.
Yeah. Again, I'm an intuitive. I realized over the years that there are certain parts of me where people are attracted to me because I'm a light bearer. Certain people who are empaths are beacons for other people, and they don't realize it. If you're a person that you'll meet somebody and like 2 seconds later they're vomiting their entire life story to you because they like feel that you're a safe person, it is hard to navigate the world because sometimes those people are just innocent and just want to get stuff off of their chest. But other people, they are attracted to you because they want to take the light that you have, the goodness that you have.
That's the parasite.
Mm-hmm.
That's the parasite. They see that and they need that. And what they're going to do, because people are in this situation and they hold on to that hope or the shame or whatever's leading them to stay. But what you don't realize that is once you're gone and you've shown that you're gone, they're going to have another one just like that. They're going to find another host in some capacity to fill that void because that's what they do. And I know that those words don't necessarily move people to make that decision to step on out and go, but it's the truth. You're a source at this moment for it's not like we think that is love, but it's not really love. You're their source of survival. And once that source is cut off, they have a limited amount of time, whatever time that is, to find another source before it's a complete spiral into whatever they're going to spiral into. So it's hard to see your value when you're in an abusive relationship because it's constantly being beaten out of you, and it don't have to be physical, but it's constantly being beaten or stripped out of you because that person knows how valuable you are. You just don't see it yourself. And when you don't see it yourself, you're just either it's a slow drip until they dehydrate everything that makes you you, and you're just going to be this shell of a being surviving. You're just going to be in straight survival mode for the duration of that relationship. And it might end with you not being here anymore and they're going to go find another one. So please get out. Please get out. Please hear these conversations. Please understand that you're not alone. And it may not feel like there's help or you can't find it, but there's always some help somewhere. And you just have to be careful and safe and plan like Monet did. You saw the writing on the wall some kind of way, and that small voice is always talking to us. We just like, no, it can't be. It is.
Well, you want to trust in the love that you have for that other person, but like somewhere in the back of your mind, somebody is like, "Hey, girl, look at that ain't right. Like this ain't right."
Every time.
But everyone goes on their own journey, and sometimes you can't tell us nothing. We got to learn the hard way. But I learned a lot of lessons about myself and my own personal resilience. I learned who I am as a woman at 36 when I left, which was a big thing for me to go from 16 to 36. 20 years with a person is not a short amount of time, but it passes quickly and you don't realize it. And realizing what you personally can withstand, what you personally are capable of, and what somebody else is capable of. Because again, you can love somebody, but you can't love them enough to save them. Only they can do that in certain degrees. And that was where I had to realize, like, I may have loved the person he was at one time, but I cannot save him. I cannot save him. I have to save me. And that means I have to leave him. That's where I have to leave him. And some people like to use, "Oh, well, you abandoned your marriage." No. We're not going to say that because I didn't abandon that marriage. I prayed to God. I tried to talk to his family. I tried to talk to his friends. I tried to get him to go to the VA. He didn't want to go to therapy. The only thing that he resonated with was me leaving him. Then he wanted to go to therapy. But even when we went to couples therapy for a little bit to try and ease him out of the relationship, but also so there was a paper trail. So because he had started following me, you can see that I'm not crazy. It's documented that this person has something wrong with them. Because he didn't take therapy seriously, it was still my fault. There was a part of our therapy when my therapist, our couples therapist, said, and he was also our couples therapist, was formerly in the military, which helps the situation a little bit. He said, well, what could fix this situation? And he asked me, and I was like, nothing. It's too far gone. Like, and then he asked my spouse, what could fit? Like, she's saying that this can't be fixed. Oh, it can be fixed. We're gonna get back together. He's like, you didn't just hear her? He's like, yeah, but we're gonna get back together. It's gonna be fine. But she said there's nothing you can do. We're going to get back together. It's gonna be fine. And I looked at my therapist and I was like, do you see? I don't have to speak. It's all this person's narrative. Like, they just don't care about any of my feelings. But you learn to actually look at the situation for what it is. There is nothing that you personally can do to save that person. You cannot love that person better. You've already let yourself almost get destroyed to love that person. It's not going to happen. And, I got up to almost 300 pounds. I ended up losing 100 pounds. Like, the depression and stuff over the years had like killed me. And even when I thought me losing weight during our relationship would make things better, it made it worse. He resented me, told me, oh, if you think you're going to leave me and get a sugar daddy, you're going to have to lose more weight than that. But he's so nice and everybody loves him. He's so polite and he's so nice. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are the same man.
Child. Lord have mercy. So, okay. So it's 2025 now, sis. Like, you still doing therapy? Like, what is life after look like for Monet?
Life afterwards is beautiful. There's still a lot of work to be done. You still daily have to tell yourself you are worthy. You daily have to pour into yourself, because that's a big part of staying afloat and growing, more importantly, growing into your next phase of life. I've done a lot of work helping other people and sharing all the things that I've went through. And just like the work that you're doing right now, it's so important to me to reach out to other people and reach back and show them, like, you can come through all of this and end up in such a beautiful place. Like, the spouse that I have now, is amazing and beautiful and romantic and just everything I ever prayed for. I've also went through like really crappy situationships and stuff, like everybody that's dating right now. But I found my person, I believe. And I never thought that being loved in the way he loves me is possible until I met him. Like, he's a book boyfriend. Like, it's beautiful. And I never thought that that was real. And I think a lot of people that go through these relationships, they feel like they'll never get the love that they had with their abuser again. Like, the good part of it that they had at the beginning. But I feel like now that I am in a good relationship, that first one was a facade. That was like having living in limerence, we'll say. Like, you believed in the idea of what it could be, not what it actually was. And that's the biggest thing that I can tell a lot of women and men out there. Like, live in what it actually is and not what you hope for it to be, because that's where we get caught up in those other situations. Is we fall in love with the idea of love and not what this individual love that we have with this other person is. Because I was in love when I was 19 years old and I got engaged. I was in love with the idea of love and the idea of being a wife and the idea of us creating this life, when in reality, neither one of us really talked about what it meant for us individually to be a husband or a wife. And that's where a lot of people get messed up too. Like their ideas of what marriage actually is are two totally different things. And I think that's part of where we went wrong. But I am constantly trying to grow, and I am constantly trying to not be ashamed of what happened to me and what happened to my family, and how to break these generational curses, because things like this, the mindset that you get into where you accept these things are things that are taught to a certain degree, especially within our community, in the African American community, I can say, because I'm African American. I have seen over the years that we like to keep a lot of things a secret because we have to keep up appearances, and no one can ever know what's going on and what happened. And, you know, some people accept it because it was done to them and they're just like, oh, well, you just got to deal with it. Or they do it on a different degree, like controlling parents, controlling family members, aunts and uncles. Like in my family, it was my great aunts and uncles. They were very controlling. And my mom was the first grandchild. That was their sister's baby. So they were always super strict and super stringent on her and her decisions in her life. So whenever it came to being near the end, she didn't really tell them about things. And I know more about my mother now that she's passed from my father, who was not around most of my life because of my mom's family. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way, because he didn't like, he was not one of those black men that walked away because he wanted to walk away. He would come to pick me up because I'm my father's first child and my mother's first child that came to term. And when they got divorced, when I was 3, my dad had, rights for custody, visitation rights. He would come to pick me up, and my mom's family, my great aunts, would keep me out of the house, would take me out of the house all day. My dad would drive from Ohio with my grandparents to come see me. And he'd never get to see me. To the point where after a while, what was the point? He just was like, okay, when she gets older, we'll start to get to know each other. Because my mother never said anything bad about my father. She just didn't say anything. Because again, controlling people in your life. Because they were like, oh, well, if you don't like leave him, we're not going to help you with the baby. And at the time, my dad worked night shifts, like he DJ'd in bars and stuff. So that comes with a whole nother stigma. And they were like, you don't know what he's doing out there. And a year later, a year and a half, 2 years later, their situation dissolved because of that wedge that was being driven. But I have 4 other sisters, and they always knew about me. My dad always talked about how he wanted all of us to be together. But like, I didn't meet my dad till my mom died. I met my dad in the funeral home, like physically in person. Like about a year or 2 before that is when we had finally started talking and starting to get to know each other over the phone. But I had physically met him until my mother died. And people don't realize, like, those generational curses that you impose on other people can drastically change the way the next 20, 30, 40 years go for them and their children. Because if my dad was around, my mother would still be alive. And that's a literal fact. My dad's not perfect, but he's a great father. And I love my stepmom and all my sisters. I love them to death. But there's one missing. And she can't be replaced. and those types of stringent familial boundaries that we put on people, to where like even as adults they're afraid to tell you what's going on in their life because they feel like they're going to get blamed. Like that continues the cycle.
A lot has been said on this show today, y'all. Goodness, it's so many things that you just summed up that I still want to. One, I can't pass this one up. Monet said, too many times we're not living in the moment, but we're living in the idea of what it could be. And that keeps us stuck. That was a good line and a truthful line. Because how many of y'all can actually sit here and say, even if it's not an abusive relationship, if it's a job, if it's living with a family member that you just don't want to be living with, how many of you can say, I'm currently living in the idea of what I want this to be and not what it actually is? Because that's what keeps us stuck a lot of times. Man, the other thing that I wanted to make sure that I touched on before we wrap this up is you said that now your spouse is textbook boyfriend, textbook, like the love that you don't think could exist. And I want to say that you is in general, not just you, Monet. But when I hear that and what I see based off of this conversation is that you attracted that to you because you worked on yourself. A lot of times people get stuck in going from abusive relationship to another abusive relationship, whether it be physical to physical, sexual to physical, physical to mental, mental to physical, or mental to mental. And it's because we don't do the work on ourselves.
Mm.
When we don't do the work on ourselves, we're giving off a certain level of energy that either attracts these people to us, or it's a sign that gives these people permission to take advantage or to do what they intend to do. But when you have an energy that you have after going through the trauma, after going through the therapy, doing the hard stuff, now you're a different light. The energy that's coming from your light now, them folks, them parasites can't really, like, they ain't attracted to it, or they may be attracted to it, but they know they don't stand a chance to actually breaking down that barrier to get to the soft part of you that they need to feel sorry for them. Because you said, I can't love anyone to get better. I can't love you enough to help you get better unless you want to get better. So guys, girls, everybody, if you've been in situations or relationships where it was unhealthy, it was an unhealthy relationship, and you keep feeling like you're finding yourself in more unhealthy relationships, that could very well be a sign that there's something inside of you, some internal work that needs to be done, so that one, you can see this, like Monet said, she see the patterns now. Like, no, I ain't even, this ain't that no more. It ain't that. So either you can recognize now what not to get into, or you can present yourself in a way that all that foolishness is deterred. It's like, oh, she ain't about this that I'm coming with, or he ain't about this that I'm coming with. Let me go find a different host that I know I can penetrate. So, I mean, my last question, because this is good. Yeah. Thank you so much. My last question for you is, how would you define confidence, and what does that feel like to Monet?
Confidence to me is knowing that whatever I walk away from, you will never replace my energy. When I pull my energy back, you will never replace it. You'll be thinking about me till the end of time. And when I leave a situation, it's not because I did anything wrong. And my brother was telling me this the other day. He said, if you stop talking to somebody, I know it was them. It wasn't you. Because you give everybody the utmost chances to do right by you and do right by situations. He was like, so if somebody don't like you, if somebody has a problem with you, I know it wasn't you. I know it wasn't you, because you try and help everybody that you come across. And when I think about it, I'm at peace with whatever situation I got to be at peace with. And if it's between me and the devil, I'm going to choose me all day. So you can be mad, upset, crying, sliding down the wall about me leaving a situation, not talking to you, whatever. I don't got to say nothing. I'm going to just move along. I'm going to take my energy and move right along. Because individually, those of us who are good people at our core, we don't owe anybody anything. We don't owe anybody anything, and the only person I have to explain myself to is Jesus. And when we have that conversation, that's what we're gonna do. And when I get up there, I'm gonna have my conversation with him, and that's gonna be it. But these people that walk the earth, you do not owe them anything. If you were genuinely a good person to them and you did what you could do, you do not owe that other person any your time, your energy, any of those things. And that is a confidence that I did not have once upon a time. But going through these situations and learning about myself and learning that at one time I was a people pleaser and I wasn't focused on the main person that I needed to please, which was myself, changed the way that I think fundamentally. And when I realized the person that I needed to please was myself, that changed the entire game.
She said what she said. She said what she said. Let me not get too loud. I'm getting excited. She said what she said. Monet, sis, let me thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your transparency.
Welcome.
Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for choosing you. Because had you not chosen you, we wouldn't be here. And whoever this message is here to reach, to help them on the other side or help them get through so they can get to the other side, it wouldn't be here either. So thank you for choosing you. Thank you for being the light that you are, for sharing the love that you have despite all of the buffoonery that you have experienced up until this day. Thank you for enduring. Thank you for keeping the faith. Thank you for just continuing to pursue who God created you to be. And thank you for now being on the other side and helping other women. Thank you for your service for that. Thank you for showing up on this show. Y'all, money, 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 money. Money. Y'all don't understand.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this platform. I've been thinking about doing this myself for so long, and part of me didn't want to do it. I don't know if it was because I was afraid of just sharing to a certain degree, but 2025 has already shown me that this is a new era of my life. And again, when you come out of these things, you have to peel the layers back. And this is just another layer that I'm peeling back. And I have to be more vocal in the world that we live in now to be able to reach people at a larger scale and share my story and my family's story at a larger scale, because I cannot be quiet. I will never be quiet. I am fortunate enough to be alive, but my mother and sister are not. And the person that I believe and many believe killed them, it's still not written in ink. The police have not finished their job. And even after the police finish their job, I will scream it till the hilltops. I will scream it till I die, because I know they're not the only ones. My mother and sister are not the only ones who have gone through this. There are so many other families and sisters and brothers and children who don't have a mother, who don't have a sister, who don't have a brother because somebody else was not held accountable. So I will continue to share my story to keep other people and other women from going through these situations and their children from being affected the way that I've been. So if I can help anybody get out of this and have a better life just by hearing what happened to me, I will do that. And I thank you.
It's my privilege. It is our privilege to be in your presence, to be in your light, to receive all of this. It is our privilege. Y'all, this has been another episode of the Confidence Way podcast, where we are rising above insecurities, releasing the burdens of shame and guilt, and reviving our God-given power, purpose, and passion, the Confidence Way. Until next week, y'all know what it is. She gone.